The Lake of Whispers, as the locals called it, was not just a body of water. It was a place shrouded in legends and ill repute. I knew this when I bought the old, dilapidated cottage on its shore. Mystery had always drawn me in, and the stories of vanished people, strange sounds, and inexplicable occurrences only fueled my interest. I was a writer, seeking inspiration, something new, something that could pull me out of my creative stagnation. The Lake of Whispers seemed like the perfect place. The cottage was old, the wood rotted, the paint peeling, but I saw potential in it. A few weeks of hard work, and it became my sanctuary. The windows faced directly onto the lake, and every evening I would sit on the porch watching the sunset as the sky painted itself in purple and orange hues, and the water surface reflected these colors like a colossal mirror. The first few days were calm. I wrote a lot, walked around the surroundings, studied the flora and fauna. The lake seemed peaceful, its surface smooth as glass, only occasionally disturbed by a ripple from a passing bird or a jumping fish. The locals avoided it, but I considered it superstition, old tales passed down through generations, nothing more. But with time, I began to notice strange things. They were subtle, so much so that I could have blamed them on my imagination, but they grew more frequent. First, it was the whispers, barely audible, coming from the direction of the lake, especially at night. It sounded like voices, but I couldn't make out the words, just an indistinct hum, as if someone was talking very far away or underwater. I tried to find the source. I'd go out in my boat, venturing into the most remote corners of the lake, but the sound always vanished as soon as I approached. I'd return to shore, and the whispers would resume, surrounding me from all sides. My dogs, two loyal retrievers who always accompanied me, began to show signs of unease. They often barked at the lake, whimpered, and pressed themselves against me when I sat on the porch in the evening. Sometimes they would growl, their fur bristling, though I saw nothing that could have frightened them. Their behavior disturbed me. Animals sense what is hidden from human eyes. One night, when the moon shone especially brightly, illuminating the lake with silver light, I awoke to a strange sound. It was like a child's cry, quiet, sad, coming from somewhere in the middle of the lake. I rushed out of the house, grabbing a flashlight. My dogs ran ahead of me, barking and whimpering, but not approaching the water. The crying intensified, growing louder, more insistent. There was such despair in it that my heart ached with pain. I couldn't stand by. Someone needed help. Without thinking, I jumped into my boat and pushed off from the shore. I rowed with all my might, trying to figure out where the sound was coming from. The crying would intensify and then fade, as if its source was moving. I sailed across the lake, illuminating the water's surface with my flashlight, but saw nothing. And then the crying stopped. Complete silence fell. I paused, listening, but heard only the beating of my own heart and the gentle splash of the oars. At that moment, I felt something touch my hand. Cold, slippery, like seaweed. I yanked my hand back. Then I saw it. Something was glowing beneath the surface of the water, a dull greenish light, and it was moving directly beneath my boat. My blood ran cold. It was something enormous. Its outlines were blurry, but I felt its size, its weight. I panicked. I grabbed the oars and began rowing to shore with all my strength. My brain screamed, "Get out of here!" I didn't look back, didn't dare. I just rowed until my arms were numb. Reaching the shore, I scrambled out of the boat and ran to the house, ignoring the dogs who continued to bark at the lake. I locked all the doors and windows, drew the curtains. I was trembling, my heart pounding wildly in my chest. What was that? What had I seen? In the morning, I tried to rationalize what had happened. Perhaps it was just algae phosphorescing in the dark. And the crying? Maybe it was some nocturnal animal, or just the play of the wind. I tried to convince myself, but an unsettling premonition grew within me. After that, the nocturnal visits became regular. The whispers intensified. The crying resumed. Sometimes I heard something scratching at the walls of my house, or heavy footsteps on the porch. My dogs refused to go outside at night. They sat at my feet, whimpering and trembling. I started seeing shadows. They flitted at the periphery of my vision, hid behind trees, glided across the surface of the lake. They were shapeless, but I felt their presence. They were watching me. My sleep vanished. I spent nights sitting by the window, rifle in hand, trying to discern anything in the darkness. My mind was in constant tension. Every rustle, every sound made me jump. I tried to research the history of the lake. I read old newspapers, local archive records, and I found more and more mentions of strange occurrences. Missing boats, vanished fishermen, inexplicable deaths. Each report mentioned strange sounds, unusual lights underwater, a feeling of dread that gripped people who found themselves on the lake at night. But nowhere was there an explanation. No one knew what it was. Just evil spirits, the water sprite, ancient evil. The locals avoided talking about it. Their faces would darken when I mentioned the lake. One day, I found an old book in the local library. It was written by one of the first settlers of these parts, 100 years ago. It detailed the beliefs of the Native Americans who once lived there. They worshipped a lake spirit, which, they said, was ancient and powerful, but very evil. It demanded sacrifices, and if none were offered, it took them itself. The book described rituals performed to appease the spirit and warnings never to disturb it at night. I understood. The whispers, the crying, the shadows, all of it was part of something ancient and powerful that lived in the lake. And I, by my arrival, had awakened it. On one of those nights, as I sat by the window, watching the lake, I saw it. Not a shadow, not a blurry outline, but the creature itself. It slowly rose from the water, its enormous, shapeless mass covered in algae and slime. It looked like a giant slug, but with unnaturally long, thin tentacles that moved in the air as if searching for something. And on its head, I made out two glowing eyes, dull, greenish, filled with ancient, bottomless sorrow.
The sight took my breath away. This was something that did not belong to our world, something that existed beyond human comprehension, and it was looking directly at me. Then it slowly moved towards the shore, its huge body leaving deep furrows in the sand. My dogs whimpered and howled, pressing themselves to the ground, trembling with fear. I grabbed my rifle, but my hand shook so violently that I could barely hold it. What could I do against such a creature?
It stopped at the very edge of the porch. Its tentacles began to grope the wooden pillars, making a strange, squelching sound. Then it lifted one of its tentacles and tapped on the window, lightly, barely audibly. I froze. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. It knew I was here. It had come for me. The tapping repeated, then again and again. Each time it grew louder, more insistent, until it became a strong thud that made the window panes rattle. I recoiled from the window. I don't remember how I got out of the house. I just ran without looking back, without discerning the path, through the forest, through the bushes, until I reached my car. I jumped in and drove away, pressing the gas pedal to the floor, not stopping until the lake was far behind. I left everything behind. My belongings, my writings, my dogs. I just ran from the terror I had awakened, from the ancient evil that slept in the depths of the lake of whispers. Now I live far from there, in a big city, amidst the noise and bustle. But I cannot forget. I see its eyes in every dark corner, hear its whispers in the hum of cars, feel its cold touch in every gentle breeze. My mind is distorted. I constantly look over my shoulder, expecting to see its shadow. I cannot sleep at night. I feel as if I hear the lapping of water coming from somewhere far away. I know it hasn't left me alone. It saw me, and it will not forget. Sometimes I think I hear the crying, the same crying I heard that night on the lake. And I know it's not just a sound, it's a call I answered, and for which I will have to pay. I no longer write. My inspiration has dried up. Only an overwhelming sense of fear remains. I don't know how much longer I can last. I don't know when it will come for me, but I know it will come, and then, finally, I will become part of the lake of whispers, part of its ancient, terrible secret, and my whisper will join the others, the endlessly repeating voices that call from the depths. I am just waiting for the moment when its tentacles touch me again,
but this time they will not let go. Life in the city has not become a refuge for me, but merely a temporary reprieve. Every time I see my reflection in a shop window, I feel as if my eyes have grown a little darker and my skin paler. I avoid looking in the mirror because in my eyes I see something that shouldn't be there, an echo of what I saw in the depths of the lake. I tried to find information about those who lived in my cottage before me, but all traces led nowhere, as if they had never existed. They just disappeared, like those who vanished on the lake. I know I am now following in their footsteps. My friends and acquaintances notice the changes in me. I have become withdrawn, nervous, often distracted, staring into space. They ask what is wrong with me. I try to make light of it, saying I'm just tired, that I need to rest. But deep down, I know that fatigue is just a mask, hiding the true horror that lives within me. I feel the lake calling me, calling with its whispers, with its cries. It will not release me until it claims its sacrifice. I know this. I feel it with every cell of my body. Sometimes I catch myself thinking that I want to go back and look into its eyes one more time, to look at this ancient evil, at the source of my fear. But I know that would mean the end, my end. But even now, as I write these lines, I hear it, a faint but clear whisper. It comes from somewhere far away, through the walls of my house, through the city noise. And I know it is approaching. It is always approaching. The Lake of Whispers is not just a body of water. It is a living creature, ancient, powerful, without equal, and it has chosen me. I have become a part of it, a part of its terrible legend, and now I wait. I wait for the moment when the lake completely swallows me, and I become one of those countless voices that whisper in its depths. And then, perhaps, I will finally find peace, the peace I sought so desperately when I first came to the Lake of Whispers.
Good night. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel.